I said from the beginning, let Obamacare implode and then do it. I turned out to be right. Let Obamacare implode. Right now, we have less than 6,000 enforcement and removal officers in ICE. This is not enough to protect a nation of more than 320 million people. It's essential that Congress fund another 10,000 ICE officers, and we're asking for that, so that we can eliminate MS-13 and root out the criminal cartels from our country. Now, we're getting them out anyway, but we'd like to get them out a lot faster. And when you see these towns, and when you see these thugs being thrown into the back of a paddy wagon, you just see them thrown in, rough. I said, please don't be too nice. Like when you guys put somebody in the car and you're protecting their head, the way you put their hand over. Like, don't hit their head, and they've just killed somebody, don't hit their head. I said, you can take the hand away, okay? It's essential that Congress fund hundreds more federal immigration judges and prosecutors, and we need them quickly. If we're going to dismantle these deadly networks, and I have to tell you, the laws are so horrendously stacked against us because for years and years they've been made to protect the criminal. Totally made to protect the criminal, not the officers. You do something wrong, you're in more jeopardy than they are. These laws are stacked against you. We're changing those laws. But in the meantime, we need judges for the simplest things that you should be able to do without a judge. But we have to have those judges quickly. In the meantime, we're trying to change the laws. We're also working with Chairman Bob Goodlatte on a series of enforcement measures, and he's a terrific guy, to keep our country safe from crime and terrorism, and in particular, radical Islamic terrorism. A term never uttered by past administration. Never uttered. Did anybody ever hear that term? I don't think so. But you heard it from me. That includes cracking down on sanctuary cities that defy federal law, shield visa overstays, and that release dangerous criminals back into the United States communities. That's what's happening. They're releasing them so...
That you have, welcome to the Gilchrist Experience, that you have our president promoting violence by the police. State of affairs from a New York thug who became president. We all know him as a New York thug. His daddy was a Klansman. So what do you expect from him? He was raised out there with these other thugs. So what's the state of affairs here, Graham?
Well, this is a spiral down. You know how a funnel operates. It starts at a wide scope and rotates down into a narrow point. This man is dangerous. He's very dangerous. There's nothing more dangerous than an ignorant man with a serious agenda.
Right. President of the United States.
Believe it or not. He's a threat to domestic life. He's a threat to international life. Right. Matter of fact, the day after this oration, some police officers stopped an Uber vehicle in Brooklyn in the 77th precinct, 2 blocks from my house. They asked the Uber driver some questions, and then they ordered the passenger out of the vehicle. The guy said, you know, what's going on? And they asked him if he had anything on him he shouldn't have. He said, what's this about? Driver. No, they asked the passenger.
No, but they stopped the Uber driver.
Random stop, for no reason, stopped the Uber driver. Then they ordered the passenger out and asked him if he had anything on him he shouldn't have. The guy had his hair braided up. He said, what's going on here? So there was some words back and forth, and people were filming from their windows. This was around 10:30 in the evening, Saturday night. they cuffed this guy, shoved him up against the car. One of the cops was heard making some derogatory statements, and then one of the officers punched the guy in the face. And people said, what are you doing? What did he do? What's going on here? They took him, put him in the police car, drove him a block away, and then let him go. They gave him a summons for disorderly conduct.
Oh.
Now, this is 24 hours after
Trump.
the fool on the hill makes his statement with regard to MS-13.
This is out in Long Island.
Brooklyn.
Oh, Brooklyn.
Brooklyn.
Okay.
So, Internal Affairs is now investigating the precinct and the officers, and the Kings County District Attorney's Office has also launched an investigation into the assault on this young man. But people were filming the entire thing from the windows up above, that lived up above in the house, outside.
I think we have Aisha with us today. Aisha, are you there?
Hey.
Hi, I'm here.
Oh.
Can you hear all this? You hear what Graham said about
I
Brooklyn?
can hear you, but I can't see you.
But you heard what Graham said about Brooklyn, right?
Well, I didn't hear the end part.
Okay. Well, we were talking about, you saw the beginning, right?
Yes.
Will you put Aisha on the screen so we can see her? How you doing, darling?
Ah,
Oh, we got your Skyped in, see?
Smile.
Smile.
Hi. How are you all doing?
Just
All right.
fine, just fine. Good to see you.
Well, what do you think
Can you
about...
see me?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
What do you think about what
So
Trump
we're
just
gonna leave
said?
it like that.
What do you think about what Trump just had to say?
Well, I will say this, that I really feel like Trump is, for the 45th, is being very reckless with speech and behavior, and that in a lot of ways he's encouraging acts of violence towards not just immigrant people, but other people in this country, and even in some cases, those who have supported him. And I think that supporting it by act, especially from the highest ranking officer in this country, is an issue. Because once you have so-called president of the United States create or sanctioning violence, it's really a sanction for everyone. It's almost like saying it's okay to harm them if they are picked up for suspected criminal behavior. Let them hit their head against the truck. That says that it's okay to hurt those who are in the custody of the police, whether or not they have even been found guilty, and even if they are in the custody of the prison system, that's okay to cause harm. And I remember when there was this.
Why are we having a problem with this?
He's right here.
Why are we having a problem with this?
No, we're losing you, Aisha.
We also have a problem with
I don't know what happened.
All right, go ahead.
What happened?
Go ahead. You're back in now.
That, and I'll say this quick. I think that a lot of his thinking and his speech on as president, especially regarding immigrants and Muslims, and us to work.
All right, it's breaking up.
And Muslims, so
Aisha.
We're not getting you.
okay, I'm sorry.
It's not your fault. It's not your fault.
Aisha. Well, we're having a lot of problems here. Little mic. I've been having a problem with my mic. You know, we're live from Manhattan Neighborhood Network. All right? Bear with us, darling. So we're going to have to cut it short, I guess.
Okay, Mr. Gilchrist, can you hear me better? I
Yeah,
think
now.
the volume may have been down.
Oh, okay. All right, just lean back a little bit. Maybe you're too close to the mic. Can you hear
Okay.
me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, it's better. There you go.
Good, thank you, leave it to
All
me.
right.
Okay, leave it. It's fine, thanks. I have Kareem Muhammad helping me, I appreciate him.
Oh, tell him hello. Yes, yes.
Thanks. So, I just want to make sure that the last part of what it said was heard. That when you have a person who is in power, giving directives, call to actions, or making accusations where people think that it's okay to create violence against a certain group of people. When he gives that call or makes those statements, it makes people feel a certain sense of, oh, it's okay to harm Mexican people or African people.
Right.
Muslims, or whatever group it is. And so what we saw in the beginning, when he made those negative statements and called certain actions, we saw an increased amount of violence towards immigrant people. That is wrong.
Okay.
That's anyone, but especially from the President of the United States.
Especially.
You know, the chief of Suffolk County was arrested last year and sent to federal prison.
The chief of Suffolk
The chief
County.
of Suffolk County Police was
Right
arrested.
out there where he was talking.
Right.
Okay.
Was sent to federal prison. He's in Allenwood, Pennsylvania right now. Somebody broke into his vehicle and he said, find this guy and get him. And I don't care what you got to do to get him. Now, when they got the guy was beaten up. And
Right.
then the chief ordered his guys to summarily whitewash everything. But it didn't work. He was arrested and charged under the federal statutes and is now serving time in Allenwood, Pennsylvania. They also reported a few weeks ago that they found drugs in his cell
Wow.
in Allenwood. So here we have the president going to the area where Latinos have been summarily and customarily beaten and robbed by the residents and police officers of Nassau and Suffolk County, because these immigrants come in, they're just trying to work. They're day laborers. They might be standing at the roadside for somebody to stop and ask them to come and do some work. They've been summarily beaten and unjustly charged. The guy in Brooklyn Saturday night, they drove him a block away and let him go and gave him a summons for disorderly conduct. All right. So the DA is now going to prosecute that case, and those guys will be looking at some stiff time. But this guy Trump, and we've seen it throughout his campaign, where people were beat up at the rallies, quote unquote rallies. People assaulted, and he's even invited his supporters, punch that guy out, get rid of him. And
That's what I mean, Graham. Those are calls to action. He is directing the steps of another to create violence towards another person.
Okay.
That even before he became president, we saw that kind of behavior. And right after that, after he became president and was inaugurated, we saw a continuum of violence toward immigrant people in particular.
Right.
Now, did you hear last night that what they're doing with the LBGQ community? They were filing a suit for civil rights, and the Attorney General said they're not covered by the Civil Rights Act. Also, today, Sessions is recruiting attorneys to come to the Department of Justice to stand against these people with regard to litigations in federal court. So Sessions is asking for predisposed people to submit their resumes now to support the ban against LBGT communities. So you see the insanity and the violation of constitutional law, not just with the president, but also with the Attorney General, who is trying to keep his job.
Fantastic.
I almost feel like, this whole presidency is very scary to me, because it almost seems as if this is not real, that this couldn't be happening. And I'm sure that other countries are looking at us and they're saying, well, what the heck is really going on? This is almost like a clown show.
I think it's God showing us all the racism that exists. After we've seen and enjoyed a gentleman and a scholar for 8 years, I think we're looking now at a big buffoon. He's been a New York buffoon for years, and the rest of the planet is seeing what New York can produce. An ex-Klansman, his daddy was a Klansman, all right? So I think we're going to clean up our act by getting rid of this buffoon, and I think we'll be proud of ourselves after we rid ourselves of racism and white supremacy.
Yeah.
I think it's coming to the fold, and I think we'll be all right after watching what a fool can do with money. And we know we can't. We might mention how much in the pocket of. I call him Putin's B. You know, well, you know what the B means. So, I mean, us New Yorkers know that because he's in his pocket, obviously. And they're all working on this Arctic deal, which is worth $500 billion to start. Exxon and Tillerson, the ex-CEO of Exxon,
Right.
they made a deal in 2014. And this is the whole sanctions deal. And I understand that Trump has 16% of the Putin Corporation.
You see, this is where the investigation that's being done with regard to him is going to go into his taxes.
Yeah.
They're going back 10 years. They're looking at the relationship between his daughter and Jared. Jared's family are from Russia. They came here in 1949.
Right.
Trump was broke. She was dating Jared. Jared's family has 5 times the money Trump has. She and Jared broke up, and then they got back together, and she agreed to become a Jew
Right, right,
because
right.
they're Orthodox.
Right.
And his parents were not having it. So she decided to convert to Judaism.
Right.
They got married. Now, that brings money
To the Trump family.
to the Trump family. This is just like the alliances in Europe between different heralds and royalty. So Donald Trump has access to the finances, quote unquote, the comeback kid. So he got money, and his own son said it, you know, we got money from the Russians. So I'm sure that Jared must have been behind bringing that financial swing into the fold, the household of Trump. So they're not looking at the campaign. They're going back 10 years, looking at all the money that has been given to him to finance his deals, his operations, and the money laundering that was going on in these different banks in Europe and the parties involved. I don't doubt that by the time that the FBI is through with their investigation, and this is why it's not a rush, it's not a rush deal.
Yeah.
They are methodically going over every piece of paper, every phone call, the duration of every phone call, the day, date, and tying that into the events of the given day. This is a very intense investigation. Let's not be rushed. Let's not say what's taken. Sit back and wait,
Okay.
because there are a multiplicity of avenues that they have to pull together. This is like a steel cable on a bridge.
Yeah.
It's one cable with 100 strands, and they're all wrapped around each other. And this is what one of the gentlemen in the FBI,
Mueller.
Mueller, is doing.
Yeah.
You see, so it's going to be a very intense presentation. But when they're done with the investigation, trust me. And today, Trump signed the bill for the sanctions.
Okay.
Reluctantly signed the bill.
And said it was against the Constitution.
He said it was against the Constitution. He's the
man's a
president
fool.
of the United
man's a
States
fool.
supporting the Soviet Union
man's a
in what
fool.
they're doing.
All right, Aisha, I know you got to run to your sponsor or something, right?
Well, we, tonight, there's a forum with Mayor Bill de Blasio, Council Member Bill Perkins, and
good.
Senator Brian Benjamin, and our State Assemblywoman Inez Dickens, all who have supported street corner resources in our work. And so it means that's why I couldn't come in studio, because I have to
Okay.
go and be present and hear what the mayor has to say, but also be there to be a voice to talk about the violence in our community, the issue.
Oh, come on.
What happened?
We lost the Skype signal.
Oh, wow. All right, so cut it. You put up the other roll in on the opening, and we'll introduce Dr. T. Mazabuku.
Yes, you got it right this time.
Well, I've been practicing.
I just
I've
want to
been
comment
practicing.
on the alias law regarding the president's speech, which is very negative towards immigrants.
Yes, very
And
much so.
I am an immigrant.
I know. That's why we're going.
And yes, I am.
You can't tell. You're from the homeland. No, you're
Yeah,
from
I'm
home.
just coming to check my brothers who were taken to this
all.
country if
Well,
they
thank
are
you very
okay.
much.
You come with a
Yes,
doctor's degree.
and I don't think only people who are not born in the U.S. are immigrant. A lot of people do not originate from the U.S. Some were brought here as slaves. So immigrants have made U.S. what it is today.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're contributing immensely to the economy. If you look at the businesses around, if you look at the job we're doing in healthcare. But what's the saddest part is instigating violence. I experienced violence at Lincoln Hospital, where I was pulled by a patient because I was speaking my language, and I was accused of speaking my language. I had an injury from
When you had the brace on.
Yes, that's
Oh,
why
that's
I had
recent.
a brace on. Yes,
That's recent.
on an old injury, it's been reactivated. It's cruel how much violence is there. How do you get in a country and you get accused of speaking your own language and being requested to speak English? You're being demanded that you have to speak English.
Yeah.
You're not speaking to the person. You're speaking to another person who understands your language.
Well, they figure you're saying something about them.
No, they were too far. I guess people just become very uncomfortable because some people may not have their own language that is different from English, and they tend to feel threatened by people speaking the other language. I think we have to be free to even be able to free to study in our own, to own whatever we would like to own, to buy whatever we would like to buy. It doesn't matter where you come from, who you are. And the sad part I've watched is the fact that prisoners cannot vote in this country. You know, it is the sad part because you
bummer.
get stripped away your human rights. So there's so many ways that you find that people are limited their own freedom. It's not just being an immigrant, it's being a prisoner, it's also going further to being an LGBT. You know that you cannot be in the army anymore. It's Obamacare, or it's being dissolved, you know, being done away with. There's debates coming up. It means if you are poor, you cannot afford health care. It's just a huge tree that has tentacles that keeps on growing and growing and growing deeper. And you said something about racism, that it's coming up. It is coming back.
Oh, it's
and we
here.
see it's not
Never
only
left.
in the U.S. If you start traveling the world and you start penetrating, even in South Africa, we struggle. We had just the Minister of Sports last year being called very bad names, like being called monkeys, being called, they use kefa in South Africa
yeah.
instead of nigger. So
What
if
is it?
Kaffir.
Kefa,
K-A-F-F,
because he
yeah.
asked that in the sporting industry, can they include blacks too in sports like rugby? Because rugby is predominantly a sports for the elite and people of white or European in origin. So they tend to exclude. We have some of the African origin, but they're very few. We find there's two. Like we were talking about oncology, there's not enough who are trained. But we see the element of racism coming up, and I just hope that the only problem that we're having is that we cannot unite as much as the opposition, those who oppose freedom, can unite. We cannot fund ourselves and our projects as much as the opposition can fund, because it's all about money. We can say everything. It's money, it's votes. We do not vote for local elections. We wait to vote for the presidential election. And by the time it comes there, it's already too late. And the electoral system is very different here. I've been questioning a lot, and whether are you really, as Americans, free to vote for your president?
No, you're not.
Because that's where it boils down to. We fought to get our freedom to vote. We can vote for our president in South Africa. I don't know about other countries. But I've noticed here that no matter how much you can cast your vote, there's still another decision maker that will decide on your president.
Precisely.
Then the question is, are you really free Have you really struck that chord of saying, I have a voice? Do you really have a voice?
Well, it's still the best place on the planet, so we have to fight for this freedom that we're supposed to have. What's on the paper?
Right.
What's in the Constitution? We have to stay straight and out and work hard for the truth to come out.
You know,
So, you know, we're going to play a piece from Nelson Mandela. Did you know he had prostate cancer?
yeah.
And play that piece and we'll come back to you and speak to the doctor about how to cure cancer. I'm voting for hemp oil.
Cannabis. I know that.
Much of a lead we have in diagnosing it, and the lead time with cancer, but his prognosis is excellent. It was diagnosed very early. It was diagnosed possibly 3 or 4 years before it would have started to cause any troubles. It has not caused any troubles up till now. He has no symptoms from it. It was just diagnosed quite by coincidence, and we can treat it. It's a very early case of cancer of the prostate, and he should be cured.
Yes.
Yes, well, that's basically it, you see. And, he's very positive about it. He's very confident that he's going to cure it. He's always been a very good patient. He is very compliant with what we ask him to do. He does everything we tell him to do. He never complains, and he's a wonderful patient. And he's going to be well. He's very accepting of his health condition. We've tried to convey to him that basically this isn't going to impact on his life expectancy. He's going to live till 100 and plenty years. That's the prostate there. Okay. And there's the prostate there. And that's
associated with me. And we must not give them the impression that they are on the way out. Today, it may be you. Tomorrow, it may be myself. And I have said, when that day comes, and it may come sooner than you think, when I reach the next world, the first thing I will do is to look for a branch of the African National Congress.
I think that he will be one of those people who will go for perhaps 12, 15 years, or perhaps even longer, according to his general health. I think that this cancer of the prostate is not a killer disease, from what I understand in his circumstances.
Just come closer, please. But my attitude is always to dictate to anything leading up to death, to say that I determine when I will die.
There is not a quick...
Huh? How I wonder what you are, up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky.
Another one of our world heroes, and from, the father of South Africa, or the world, really. His stance in Africa was, oh, wow. So Martin and Malcolm and everybody tuned together. I saw one of the old clips where he with him as a young man. He had an interview. I started to bring that in '61. Wow. We have to study Mandela because he's our manhood. For anybody to sit around and be peaceful and kind, and all those 27 years, the first 15, his wife couldn't touch him, had him secluded. Oh, I mean, my God. My goodness, she stayed true for 20 years at least, right?
And he could not see his children
He couldn't see
until
his
they were
children.
16. And when he saw his daughter for the first time, he was only allowed, I think, 15 minutes and no touching, only through the glass. Imagine seeing your daughter for the first time at the age of 16. But I think the whole world could learn. I always sit back and wonder what will Nelson Mandela do to the current situation in the United States.
He died at what age? It was
He died at
90.
93.
93, see?
Yeah, we made a long line to go see him. The whole country was allowed to come and see him in his casket. Everybody, he was, I think, for 2 days, people were just going.
Yeah.
I flew all the way, and I did the signing the book. Yes, but you spoke about peace, which is what we're really striving for.
Right.
Because when the oppressor oppressed, and then we said, we forgive. We were trying to get the peace. Same thing that happened in the U.S. during the days of MLK, and everybody said, we're doing it at peaceful. We just want our own peace. We want to be equal.
Right.
You know, today I opened the Bible in the morning, and I just opened the Bible. Proverbs 22 said, the poor and the rich are the same because of one creator. They have one creator.
Right.
One thing that equalizes all is that we have one creator. We cannot say because I'm black or because you're white, you're better than the one who's black. Nelson Mandela never, when he had an opportunity to take over and kick all the European out of the country, he said, no, let's make peace. I wish we can be able to find that element of peace. Like when you're saying we need to review his life, I think what you're doing with the Gilchrist experience, to review Nelson Mandela and for having us here is such an honor for our country. And it's also such an honor for your show to be able to bring that element of Nelson Mandela.
Yeah.
We also were planning an event, like we were saying, we postponed our event to October, where we're reading Nelson Mandela's speeches. Because those speeches may be able to remind us that there are some people who really brought that element of peace in when the scales were tilting, they managed to bring the balance. The current situation in the US and all over, because even in South Africa, we're not doing very well in the political arena.
Okay.
I think the political arena as a whole needs to find, we still need those people like Nelson Mandela. We cannot relax. We cannot say it's over. But as a doctor, I will also have to deviate back into saying, yes, he was a cancer patient.
Right.
And we thank him for speaking out, because the first thing as a cancer patient is to come out and say, yes, I have cancer, and accept. Or if you have symptoms that are showing to have cancer, you come out and you say, yes, I have cancer. That's the first step for him at his level to stand up and allow the doctors to tell us the details of his health situation, because he has a right to privacy. He doesn't have to explode it all on the media. And being a patient of cancer and knowing that we come from a third world country which does not have enough resources, and I'm sitting here watching the video and I'm saying, this is what we are striving to achieve for our people, that we detect cancer early. We don't wait for them until they advance. Hence, we started the charity organization to say, we want to provide free cancer screening for those who cannot afford. It speaks to the same thing that Obamacare speaks to say, why don't we provide health care if people need it? It's a basic thing that any political leader can do. I was saying on Sunday when they were asking me, there were people in Union Square, and I walked past, they were writing, and I said, I would like to just write, keep the Obamacare as it is, because it's taking care of so many people who are in need. If you design a system as a leader, either political leader or a healthcare leader, I'm talking about Ministry of Health or a president of the country, if you design any system and you exclude the poor in that system, it's going to crumble down.
Yeah.
Right.
Because the poor are the majority. And who forms the poor? The poor are formed by the system of the same exclusion and racism. So it means somehow now you're putting the same pressure that was building up, and it's going to explode. It's not going to survive. But any leader who cares, who designed their system and focuses majority on designing and accommodating the poor and those who cannot afford, that system will stand the test of time, which is what we've seen with Obamacare. It was criticized a lot when Obama was a current president. But it cannot be replaced now.
Well, you have to realize Obamacare was actually a Republican idea.
Right.
That's right.
Right.
It came from Romney. And what state was he?
Massachusetts.
Romney had that as a governor. So Obama, in his smart mind, he takes a Republican idea and says, well, here, guys, here's the ideas coming from you. Now, this is a peacemaker Obama was. That's how clever he was. And they said, just because I'm black and I put it in front of you, something that you guys thought of, look what happened.
What we also did is to visit, I read, that he visited communities.
Right.
He visited the local people as the president before he started. He asked the people to help in the designing of the Obamacare.
Right.
So this is what we're saying, that the people on the ground are the true leaders, basically.
Yeah.
So consultation and accommodating them is the first thing that should be done.
One thing you have to realize about Obamacare, he put it out there to the point that they had 140 amendments, which they never mentioned. They said he did it in the secret of night. But he had 140 amendments by the time they finished and passed it.
The package itself was better than what we have.
Yeah.
But the Republicans would not allow that package to go through in the way. So he acquiesced in some ways just to get what we have through. The white majority of the country, you know, it's ironic. I listen to people, you know, Obama, because the guy is black, you want to erase his name from history. You cannot do that. It'll never happen.
Real racism.
But the majority of the people being helped by Obamacare are white people and not black people.
Really?
There are regions of the country where white people have to wait for a medical van, as though they were in South Africa. They have to wait for a medical van to travel through and come to their area maybe once a year. So they get online, long lines. Some of them don't get any help because the van has to move on. So they're waiting there to see the dentist. They're waiting there just to get their blood pressure
In
taken.
states like Kentucky.
And whatever their ailment is, they're waiting in long lines. This is in the United States. So when a guy like that, McConnell, is talking about, and there's Obamacare with his thin lips, we don't need it, it's no good, he has medical coverage. Every congressman, his wife, his children, they have medical coverage for life, for life. And people are listening to the foolishness of these rich men who have far more than what they have.
But it's happening everywhere.
Right.
To be honest with you, I have not been one of the favorites in my country because I advocated for the poor. And the Ministry of Health did not like the fact that this young girl keeps on reminding us that there are people who are poor, who are dying. What we're seeing breast cancer patients coming with worms coming out of their breast.
Really?
That's how severe, that's what I've touched most of my career. Lesions where there's worms oozing out of the people's bodies. And I took my own car.
What caused that?
Because it was so detrimental. I used to drive my own Mercedes. Take it to the rural areas to pick up these patients because the ambulance will not get there. Now the media will come and follow the work that we're doing in the community. We have one of the ladies with us on the studio, but we hopefully maybe can bring him to testify on the work that we're doing in the community. When you do that and you go and become actively involved in the community and you help the poor, you get criticized a lot. So much that the ministry, the Department of Health wanted to strip me of my career completely, so that I lose my job. I lose being a doctor just because I'm doing something so good that has never been done before, that it created the animosity within the department. Because the question is, what has been done all along?
Right.
So when you start going into the depth like that, you raises a lot of questions. You start showing the reality on the ground. This is what's going to happen if Obamacare gets eradicated.
Yeah.
We're going to start seeing people really dying, literally. And we will see a lot of doctors being fired because now they're going to expose the truth. They're going to start coming up and saying, this is what's happening. When you look into Harvard University did a study on Thabo Mbeki, who was the president who followed Nelson Mandela. Thabo Mbeki refused that our country should start the antiretrovirals. It was a huge struggle for South Africa. Kids were dying. People were dying. We did not have antiretrovirals because the president had refused that we implement the antiretrovirals in the country. If you're HIV positive, you had to eat beetroot. You were not allowed to have antiretrovirals. So some of the doctors who prescribed antiretrovirals were fired and suspended. It happens every time when there's something new in place that is working and it does not come from the certain powers, it gets eradicated or destroyed or made or criminalized. It's how the people in power always work. It does not only happen on race issue. I don't want us to look at it as it's a black or white thing, but it's always about power. People in power want to control. They want to control and they want to benefit and they want the credits to be themselves. So much that imagine if a doctor was prescribing antiretrovirals back then, during the days of Thabo Mbeki, you will be losing your job as a doctor.
Explain that.
So same thing as me when I went out to go to the community to provide healthcare and open free clinics, I was threatened. I could not go to my workplace. This is how Colombia then started saying, we can bring you over and so that you can get some kind of support in your training. They gave me a scholarship in 2010 to come and do the training in New York. I said, no, I'm staying in my country. This is my challenge. I want to face it head on. I'm going to train in my own country. I'm going to continue with the work. We form the teams. We continue to raise an awareness. We continue to have the media coming on board, including Oprah Magazine.
What about this cure that you mentioned? I didn't understand. What was the cure that you were
No,
practicing?
it's not the cure. What I was talking about is antiretrovirals, which is the treatment for HIV. It's an HIV treatment. South Africa has the highest rate of HIV, especially in KZN where I come from. We have the highest rate of HIV in South Africa. So we were the most of the very few countries in Africa, one who denied starting antiretrovirals. And Harvard wrote a paper where it said on that paper, it's online, you can look at it. Harvard said our president, after Nelson Mandela, has predisposed the South Africans to death more than racism. Because the diseases are killing people similar to the war era, or even worse than the war era. Diseases are the main killer of the community. So if you do not provide health care for the poor, you are saying if you are poor, you must die. And who is the poor? The majority are the poor who were previously disadvantaged black communities. So it's another way of killing. It's manslaughter to deny health care to people. Hence, we then stopped and said in South Africa, we said, as doctors, we will stop working if you do not provide health care. We're going to stop. You have to provide health care for everybody. You have to renovate the hospital. You have to give us equal rights. I was part of the negotiation team that went with the Ministry of Health and the President, and we said, bring health care as the main. Doctors were getting paid in South Africa less than the truck drivers at that time. When Nelson Mandela was in...
Doctors were getting paid
less than a truck driver, or almost similar. I remember I was an intern at that time. That was 2005. We were not getting paid anything. It went on. We tried to go on negotiations with an organization called South African Medical Association, which is SAMA. We started negotiations. Those negotiations did not end up in nowhere because they will ignore you because they know you have an ethical code that forces you to continue taking care of patients with suboptimal treatment. I was in OBGYN at that time doing operation. The gloves were popping up when we were operating. But now the system has improved because doctors stood up. So this is why my community in Kwanyuswa, where I come from, is very rural. I became the only doctor. It was my decision that I said, I want to provide the health care that a person who works and who's affording can receive. I would like to see my mother, who's a domestic worker, being screened for cervical cancer, for breast cancer, before she has a disease. I would like to see the gardener, the person who's taking care of the cows in the field, being screened for prostate cancer as if they can afford. That is the system that we need. This is
care.
Preventative care.
Universal
being
health care.
proactive than being retroactive, being
Reactionary.
reactionary. We cannot be reactionary all the time because the diseases like cancer really kill. And we find that a lot of people pick up the disease very late. It's not like in the case of Nelson Mandela, like we've seen, where the disease is picked up very early.
Yeah.
You know, when I was in the Gambia, President Jammeh, in all of Africa, only 300 people died of AIDS in the Gambia. Only 300.
Wow.
And when I was there with him, I went to the hospital that he ran. And I got to the hospital, we walked in, I don't see anybody. We go upstairs, second floor, third floor. I saw one lady and I saw a gentleman. And the gentleman is writing a letter, and I said, "Are you a patient?" He says, "Yes." I said, "How long have you been here?" He said, "About a month and a half." He says, "I'm going home tomorrow." I said, "Tomorrow?" He says, "Yes." He said, "When I came here on the gurney," he said, "I couldn't lift my arm."
Wow.
I said, "You're going home? You've been here 6 weeks?" He says, "Yes." He said, "The president has healed me." What Yahya Jammeh was doing, and I know a lot of people don't like him as a dictator and the coup that went down back in the late 90s or early 2000s, but he comes from a family of healers and he has a PhD in pharmacology.
Oh,
But what he was doing, he was treating his people himself.
Right.
So when I was there, CNN Europe came and they were asking Mr. President, how is it that you're doing this? He says, "These are my people.
Yes.
I'm their president."
Right.
So the
Right,
reporter says, "Well,
right.
what's the secret?" He said, "Do you understand what the word secret means?" She said, "Yes." He said, "Do you have any background in medicine or pharmacology?" She said, "No."
No.
So what am I talking to you for? But they called him a quack. But I spoke with dozens of people. As a matter of fact, we went to the back of the hospital. There was a big garden area, and the patients were out there. I only saw one gentleman that it was obvious that he had AIDS. In talking to the people, they thanked God. They thanked Allah because they're all Muslim. They thanked Allah for that man. And I said, thank God for the devotion he has to his people.
That's it.
He said, as long as I'm president, I will come and I will treat my people. So he said, healing is to be free. This is what Jammeh said.
That's it.
Healing is the gift of God.
Amen.
And you should not charge people
That's
for
right.
the healing.
Thank you. You
The
should
greatest
not
resource
charge.
of the nation
That's
is
it.
its people,
That's
and of
right.
that, its children. So he said, as long as I'm president, I will treat my people, and I will take care of my people. He said, and it's not for Europeans to know what I know to make a dollar on what I know. He said, I don't care what you say
Amen.
about me. I'm
I
going to
like
take
that.
care of my people.
I like
It's not
that.
about money. This is
it.
where it, even in this country, why are people paying $500 for a dose of medication?
Yeah, it's
It's unconscionable.
It's a hustle. It's a real hustle here.
The statistics are showing that for every 4 Americans, 2 of them are hypertensive. I looked at that. It's on the trains. It's advertised everywhere. then I stopped and I asked myself, what are the local doctors doing something about that? Then I realized that NMA, National Medical Association, goes out to the community and do free screening. And we have united as African doctors. We are going out and we are seeking assistance. We are seeking everybody to come and join us, where we're gonna go and do screening, public screening for people everywhere. Same thing that we were doing back at home, we're still doing it here. Providing free screening, because that's the key. Go and check yourself. We will not talk a lot about treatment issues and difficulties and healthcare. Our grandmothers were eating vegetables.
That's right.
They were walking up the hills and the mountains. They were drinking water, not the sodas, because they could not afford the sodas. They were eating from the grounds, from what now is very expensive. The food that is basic food from the ground is becoming expensive, and the food that is wrong is the one that's becoming cheaper.
Right.
Our grandmothers live. The mother to my grandfather lived to 125. I know her in person.
Right.
I don't know my grandfather, but I know the mother to my grandfather. She was blind. She had her head down. She couldn't walk up anymore. She was using a stick. She knew how to count money. She never forgot money. Her pension money, she knew exactly, and she had her own favorites. But I'm saying this to say, let's go back to the basics.
Yes.
The basics are so key. I always say, start simple. Start exercising, start walking, eat healthy. Why? I do not understand. Why are we eating a fried chicken when we can eat a boiled chicken?
Is that more healthy?
It's more healthy. Let's go out and do
How
our
about
screening.
cures for cancer? How about cures for cancer?
We will get to the cure, which is very important. There's so many studies that are coming up. I know you want to talk about the hemp oil, which I'm not scared to talk about the hemp oil because the laboratories now are starting to investigate.
I just met a doctor yesterday.
I read a report this past week after we were on last week.
But let's do the screening, because without the screening, we will not have the treatment.
I had a surprise for you.
You have
I
a
met a
surprise.
doctor
National Institute of Health put out a...
But let's agree we're going to do the screening.
Now, her daughter, a 14-year-old daughter, has epileptic fits.
Right.
14. She's a doctor trained in Cuba. I'm going to Cuba the 20th of August for 5 days.
I'm going next month.
Huh?
We
didn't plan it.
didn't plan it.
Oh, that's nice.
But I'm going down to talk to the IFCO doctors.
But Cuba has
trained
amazing...
in Cuba. And she's got her daughter just recently started on hemp oil to cure her epileptic fits. All right? So we're not only going to have a doctor trained in Cuba with the idea that hemp oil can cure her daughter. Not only not a patient, but a family member.
I saw on Dr.
Now we're going to see the results of this, and by the time I come back from next September, we'll run a show and have the child on and see what kind of progress we have from this marijuana medical marijuana cure. So we'll see what happens here. I mean, it's something I've been talking about for 10 years here at MNN.
In the U.S., they have a laboratory. It was shown on Dr. O's show. The laboratory looks into treating cancer or children with autism.
Right.
And they had a gentleman who's doing very well, who has been on hemp oil.
Yeah.
And I think maybe we can run that clip from, we'll have a look at it.
I got plenty of them.
NIH put out a publication.
But it would be nice to have a patient. We can bring the patient on the studio.
Yeah, we're gonna do
and we
all
can
of that.
bring one of the experts in the hemp oil, and we can talk about it.
Yeah.
But I will go back and say, we will not be able to bring cure without the screening.
Okay.
Because we have to know that you have that cancer. We have to know that you have the hypertension or diabetes. You have to be diagnosed to be treated.
Right.
That's right.
So the problem is our own people do not go for screenings.
Right.
They will still present with the late disease, even with the cure being present. because we do not have the system of training ourselves to go and check ourselves. This is what I'm saying. It's okay, we can be maybe bad in eating, but still don't miss your checkups.
Right.
Don't miss your pap smears. Don't miss to touch and feel your own breast. Maybe we can do a little bit of a breast show just to show how to palpate for your breast cancer. Let's do that.
I have a friend who
why
was
don't we
here.
do it?
He had breast cancer.
Why don't we
I don't
do
know
it?
if we can do that here.
I have a friend who had breast cancer. You know, he had breast cancer.
Maybe a
To
couple
show
of
the
males.
listeners and see how you
A couple
check.
of males showing how you check a male out.
Yeah, Ray.
Yeah,
Ray.
it's easy. You take
yeah.
your right hand, you put it on the opposite breast. You either go clockwise or you go anti-clockwise.
We can actually show the breasts?
No.
Oh.
Will you do it right? When you show you show it on your own clothing.
Okay.
You can take your right hand
Okay.
and put it on your
What's-
nipple.
What do you feel for?
Feel the nipple.
Oh, the
then
nipple.
Feel the nipple first, and then go around it. You look at the clock. You say either clockwise or anti-clockwise is your choice. But whatever movement you choose, you have to rotate around it. You
I
go
was
around.
I was surprised to see that men can get breast cancer.
Yes, men can
I
get
thought it was
breast
hysterical.
cancer.
But this macho man, we had
Ray
him on the
Rice, a
show.
friend of mine, he had breast
Yeah, that's
cancer.
right.
He did the show with us.
Yes, Nelson Mandela had prostate cancer too. Even big,
Well, prostate.
even very,
I'm
very
talking about
important
breast
people.
cancer. A male
breast cancer occurs in male have breast too.
Yeah.
Yes,
I know,
But
but
what
I
I always request is that while you are having a good time with your partner, help us and feel those breasts for us.
Oh, okay.
So when you play safe.
All right.
Play safe.
What they found, the research have found that the cancers that have been detected early are the ones that are found by the husbands when they feel their wives' breasts. So I hope the same can be vice versa.
Okay. So what time? It's time to go, huh?
Yes.
Almost.
It's
I
almost.
gotta go
We got a
play.
minute to go.
Yes.
Well, thank you for coming, Doctor. It's an interesting show today. We didn't get to Bishop Tutu. He's another
about him
prostrate
today.
cancer patient.
I saw him
But
here. on the
we've got a lot to come to talk about. Healing all sorts of diseases with hemp oil. I'm going down to Cuba, like I said, on the 20th, and we'll see what kind of results we can get from these cancer studies and the doctor trainings. I'm going to bring back videos. Well, thank you for coming, the Gilchrist Experience. Stay tuned for more exciting subject matters. And Dr. T.
Thank you.
That's
for
my
having
favorite
me.
expression of Dr. T.
I like it. I'm used to it.
Dr. T.
Thank you for all
And
the
of
support.
course, Graham.
And no relation
And-
to Mr. T.
No
guy.
relation to Mr. T, please.
No, not Mr. T, Dr. T. The God in me loves the God in you, and stay tuned for more of the Gilchrist Experience. Power to the people. God bless.